All right, what's up, everybody? New update. Camera is coming tomorrow. Microphone coming tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be squared away in that regard, and so you can see my lovely face in HD. But other than that, we've got a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk a little football. We found a little tweet that we thought was interesting. NC State college football playoffs. Could it be? Got Kenton Gibbs locked on Wolfpack here. Let's have that conversation on today's show.
Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Gibbs Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs here from Locked On Wolfpack each and every Monday to start off your week. We have some really good content to go over for y'all. Kenton, how's it going? How we living?
Oh, great as always. Every day that I'm vertical and moving is a good one, and we are both of those things today. So it's a great day, despite some very spicy talk about the ACC as of late.
100%. And so I want to get into this because there's been some murmurs that Commissioner Phillips is not doing a good job, but that's, of course, we got to spend a whole episode on that. And Paul Finnenbaum, he is just, going off the rails about the ACC per usual. But the topic at hand right now, we always talk about fun things in the offseason. Big Game Boomer tweeted out, college football 2022 season tiers. And there's 6 of them, right? Mm-hmm. 6 tiers where the bottom 6, tier 6 is a lot of teams where they're going to have mediocre seasons, I'm assuming. Tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2. Then there's tier 1. Where they have 4 teams predicted to be in the college football playoffs. And I'm perusing through and I'm like, Alabama, okay. Ohio State, sure. Utah, interesting enough. But the one that I landed on that caught me by most surprise is NC State being in the college football playoff conversation. Now, as someone who is a former NC State football player, I would like to know immediate reaction when you saw Tier 1 and NC State potentially being a college football playoff candidate.
2 things. Number one, you're putting the cart before the horse. NC State has not won a conference championship in football, baseball, or men's basketball since Jim Valvano was, coaching here. So
and
with
that's
that,
the 80s for context, for those who don't know who Jim Valvano is.
So with that being said, this is I'm very interested and intrigued by that, especially considering there has been a historical preference to have multiple SEC teams in if there is any doubt within other conferences. If there is any doubt, we have seen multiple years, I want to say consecutively, if I'm not incorrect here, of multiple SEC teams. So I get where you're going. I think it was the right idea, just with the wrong teams a little bit. You know what I mean? Just as unfortunate as it is, certain conferences double up, and that's just the nature of the beast.
So were you just feeling as if there's been too much stock in NC State because of how they have done in the past, or because you just don't feel like this team has what it takes in the current?
I do not like the idea of going from being the hunter to being the hunted without first hunting the champs. Without first beating the champs. Like, you can say, oh, well, NC State finally got over the hump of beating Clemson. Clemson were the champs last year. They did not make it to the championship game last year. So beating them was not the hump that NC State needed to get over. And you can say, well, historically, NC State performs very well against Wake Forest at home. That's fine. But now you got to go beat Clemson on the road. So the idea to me is very simply, you have to prove that you belong here. When I was in high school, I played for a school that was not a perennial powerhouse in Michigan. We were not that by any stretch of the imagination. And then when we went to the state championship, I want to say it was my sophomore year, we got kicked out in the semifinals. Every week we were picked against. The next year, every week we got picked up against up until we won the state championship. We still were the underdog in that game. The next year after that, we came back underdogs after about the first 2 rounds every game. So to me, to go from, we missed the ACC championship to now people are having you in the playoffs is a little. That's a quantum leap, if anything.
Well, do you think that the return, you got Isaiah Moore coming back from injury, you've got Peyton Wilson coming back, you've got, Tanner Ingle returning, you have some powerhouses, you got Thayer Thomas, right, coming back for offense, you have Devin Leary, who some are arguing is one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, in the country, really, and to me, I'm not understanding why we're not embracing NC State being in the college football playoff conversation, because if anything, sure, the Wake Forest game was a lot. I think Wake Forest last season had a very special season, and nobody was really going to get in the way. Very few got in the way of that. But this NC State team has a chip to where we're past the 10 win. If we get 10 wins, it's a great job for us. We want to be in the ACC Championship conversation. We want to be in the college football championship conversation. Like, that's what the team has, the kind of talent and caliber they have to be of those, high talks. So why not just be like, hell yeah, we're going to be in college football playoffs. Why not us?
There is a difference between having the conversation and being the favorites in that conversation. There's a difference.
So you like being the underdog?
I don't agree with being the favorite without doing anything to become the favorite. I don't agree with that.
NC State hasn't proven themselves worthy of being a favorite in the favorite conversation.
Win a chip, and then we can discuss this. And mind you, here's the craziest part about this, okay? All the experts last year said that NC State was going to have a decent season. Vegas had their over on wins at, I want to say, like 4.5 or 5, something like that. Like, either way it goes, even if it was 6, I know it was ridiculously low, because when I looked at it, I'm like, have they not seen this schedule? NC State's going to be halfway there through their first 4 games, barring something catastrophic going wrong. They're going to be there. So I don't understand how we go from there to like, this team needs to be discussed in terms of playoffs, because it's very possible that we have a champion that doesn't go to the playoffs. We saw it happen last year. So I don't think that the SEC will get 3 teams. I think that's ridiculous. But with that being said, a team out of the Big Ten, 2 SEC teams, that leaves room for one other. And is it going to be a group of 5 team again who goes undefeated, runs the table, beats everybody by 20? Or is it going to be an ACC team who is undefeated or has maybe 1 loss? It is tough to say, hey, we know NC State's going to be that, because while NC State has a lot of great things, that team has a lot of things that you can hang your hat on. Returning 10 of 11 starters on defense, returning one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, returning one of the deepest and most experienced receiving cores in the nation. While that is nothing to scoff at, there are still questions about, can you run the ball? There are still questions about the running game. I mean, not the running game. Our outside corners getting beat like a drum last year. If anybody has anything to say about Charleston Rambo getting drafted and what he was wearing, staring in front of the screen in a very no, that was George Pickens. I'm sorry. But if anybody has any questions about Charleston Rambo getting drafted, look at that tape against NC State.
Cyrus is coming back off the injury.
Yes, and he's a safety. He's not going to be primarily responsible for holding down the outside receivers when they go on deep routes. Gibson likes to blitz a lot. He likes to leave safeties in the middle high position. We didn't have problems getting bust up the seams. We had problems on the outside. Our corners, it was Wake Forest converted. I want to say it was like a 4th and 14 or 4th and 15 or something like that.
Don't refresh my memory. The corners are both what, freshman and sophomore, or true freshman and sophomore?
No, it was Derek Pitts Jr., who was a super senior, and Chris Ingram was hurt. Tayshawn Smith was hurt. I can't remember who the other corner was, but Shaheem Battle was the nickel, and he was excellent. But as far as we're looking at those outside corners, especially in today's game, to not have at least one that you're like, hey, whoever their number 1 guy is, he's going to follow him around. Or we're going to keep you on this side of the field, but because you're here, we know that this side is done. When you don't have that, that leaves a big question in today's game.
I was hyped about NC State being college football playoffs, but now you're trying to put me back to earth, and I don't really appreciate it. But you do bring up a good point about college football playoffs and the idea or factors of whether or not an ACC team would be in that conversation. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. I want to remind you, friends, that we know the summer is hitting and you're trying to get your body right. That's why you should lean on Built Bar. best tasting protein bar ever, has up to 160 calories, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, all those net carbs you need for when you're trying to go on a road trip with friends as we're getting ready for a very exciting football season. Are you going to cheer for teams like NC State, or you guys will Cherry Garcia to add to the mix? Maybe you like some cinnamony churros kind of style when you're going to your Wake Forest game. All of that can be yours when you hit up when you use promo code LOCK15 and go to built.com. Again, go to built.com using promo code LOCK15 right now to get the best tasting protein bar ever in Built Bar. We're speaking with Kenton Gibbs here of Locked On Wolfpack, and we are trying to hype up the idea that NC State will be in the college football playoffs this season. But, of course, we have a realist in the group, and I just understand that there are some hesitations to truly buy into why NC State might not win the whole kit and caboodle in terms of the ACC Championship because they haven't done it in a while. And we also have the issue of just going to college football playoffs because the ACC is struggling a bit to get a team in there for many reasons. We'll start with sorry.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that one of the largest parts of what causes the ACC struggles to get in is the computers are not deciding it. It's humans. And humans are not, like a lot of these folks, why are you on this committee? You've never played football at a high level. You've never studied the game at a high level. You have nothing to do with the game outside of fandom. And yet you're on the committee making the decisions for who gets into the playoffs. I mean, I think it's very interesting that so many people have so much to say about the ACC being bad and all that now. Okay, fine. Let's go with that argument. The ACC is just god awful and sure. Okay, so I think that the SEC is the only conference, or I'll even give you the Big Ten as well. Those two conferences have one or two teams that you could say, hey, we'll drop those teams in the ACC. They'll dominate off bat. Sure. Everybody else, I beg your pardon. What are we supposed to believe in out of the Pac-12? We think that Lincoln Riley has now turned USC into the greatest winners of all time in 1 year. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of Lincoln Riley. I think that he's one of the great minds of today's college football game. He made people believe that Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. Great mind. I don't think that USC team turns it around that quickly. The Big 12. What Big 12 team do y'all think we can put in here and say, oh, yeah, this team is going to be all right? Who? The Texas team that everybody says is back after they beat up on Louisiana Lafayette or something? And then, we don't hear from them again by week 5? Oh, the Oklahoma team that has a first-time ever head coach. I like Brent Venables a lot. I think highly of him. First-time head coach. That's a different seat. That's a different ball game than defensive coordinator. So can he pan out? Who knows? But who's to say, oh, that's a playoff team now? Oklahoma State, please, don't talk to me about them boys in Stillwater. Don't do that. Don't do it. So who is the team out of these other conferences? Are we talking Oregon out of the Pac-12? Who are we talking? I want to know who these teams are that, the ACC is now scratching the surface of irrelevance and no team that they have is okay, sure. Tell me the teams from those other two conferences that you're going to drop in the ACC and they dominate right away.
Thank you so much for that insight. Where I was going with my conversation was the fact that I think the strength of schedule in terms of the ACC beating each other up and having the divisions has been a big issue for teams and having to prove their quote-unquote worth of being in the college football playoffs. So another reason why you should get rid of the divisions is it opens up the floor to really go ahead at each other and build strength of schedule for a lot of these people that do want to be in that college football playoffs conversation towards the end of the season.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that the North Carolina and Wake Forest playing each other last year as a non-conference game is all you need to know about why divisions are not making any sense. That's all you need to know. That game to me was wait, these are two in-state teams, two teams in the same conference. Is it not a conference game for some reason? Doesn't make sense. But with that being said, I do believe that all of the strength right now and historically has been in the Atlantic. I mean, when is the last time a coastal team won it? Do you remember?
The ACC?
Yes.
Pitt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before Pitt, when was the last time? That made me look crazy. Before Pitt, when was the last time a coastal team won it?
It's been a minute because Clemson has dominated, which is a bigger conversation. But yeah,
Even
it's been a
before
while.
Clemson. Remember when Jameson and company was there? It was,
Yeah.
and then EJ Manuel. It was Clemson or Florida State. There has not been a decent run or a decent string, which the Atlantic could very well flip on its head very quickly.
Well, Virginia Tech has been in the conversation for a good little bit as well.
Well, for sure, but there is to me there needs to be either destroying of the divisions or a rotating system so that there is not a static, hey, these teams are here, these teams are here, because it's one thing to say like a 5-year stretch, sure. When you go back 10 years, when you got to go back almost 10 years to find the last time an Atlantic team won, you're in absolutely wild territory.
Yeah, completely agree. I think ultimately, though, when the divisions are done away with, it still opens and bears the questions of these tiers of trying to figure out who is going to have a good season. Because it wasn't just NC State that was in the top of the conversation. It was also Wake Forest, who happened to be in tier 2. And as we mentioned, Wake Forest and NC State will still be facing off this time in Raleigh. But nonetheless, it's going to be a big game. It's going to be one you circle on the calendar. Clearly, NC State is going to want that lick back. And let's say beating Wake Forest is going to be the difference maker between going to the college football playoff, having this undefeated season, or even having a one-loss season. How much pressure do you think is going to be on this Wolfpack team to get this win? As the same monkey that was about Clemson now on Wake Forest, about Wake Forest.
Well, Wake Forest, I don't think that there is a quote-unquote monkey about Wake Forest at home for NC State.
NC State is very, very clearly, but that you still have to clarify. Still, at the end of the day, Wake Forest held them up last season from being in the ACC Championship.
Absolutely. But if you look at the history of that rivalry, it is always when NC State goes into M&T, or is it M&T or as soon as they head into that stadium, it's always going to be a problem for NC State football. Nobody knows why. Even on years where NC State football is really good and Wake Forest is really bad, every NC State fans know if we're traveling to play Wake Forest, you got to get a little tense, got to get a little tight. But I think the bigger thing for NC State is not just Wake Forest. It's about week in and week out consistency. Week in and week out, am I getting one better? Because the idea that this team is champions is not something that, for the listeners who have heard me today, I know that some of you would think that I am wholly against the idea, and I don't think that there's a snowball's chance in AG double hockey sticks that NC State takes this thing. That is not what I believe. What I do believe, however, is that there has to be maintained, consistent, getting better throughout the season. There can't be weeks off. There can't be weeks where you lapse. The extraordinary is doing the ordinary things extra well. The week that you decide to not do that, it could all go away. So is it possible for this NC State team to run the table? Yes. Is it possible for this NC State team to end up in the conference championship? Yes. Is it possible for them to end up in the NCAA playoffs? Yes. Yeah, college football playoffs. Absolutely. All of those things are possible. But the question is, which NC State team will show up from week to week? Will it be the same team every week? Or will it be what we've seen in the past from NC State, which is regardless of how good or bad NC State is, there's just going to be one or two games, maybe even more, where you're stuck scratching your head the entire time. What happened? How did this happen? Last year, it was Mississippi State. Louisiana Tech ran for more yards against them than we did, and we had an offensive tackle that was the first tackle off the board. That was the first offensive player off the board. How does that happen? We get to the goal line and do a jump pass. How does that happen? If the jump pass gets picked off, how does this happen? What are we doing? What are we really doing here? So again, this NC State team, they have the potential, they have the ability, but the question is, are we going to get a consistent NC State team showing up to dominate every week?
No doubt about it. And of course, we want to talk about some other sides of the fence, as there are other teams, especially ones in the Coastal Division, that could give, let's say, this NC State team that goes to the ACC Championship a little bit of a scare. But first, I want to remind you guys that if you're ready to bet this year, especially this fall, on these very good college football games, we strongly encourage you to hit up our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is the number one source for all of your sport wagering needs. Make sure that you get live betting in. You can get some playoff action. We know that there was a few Game 7s last night, and I'm sure you guys were either hurting the pockets or you were feeling really good after your prediction. Shout out to the Mavs, Reggie Bullock and company. And I want to make sure that you guys always have everything you need, from futures bets to the small nitty-gritty bets that you may want to have. BetOnline has got you covered. So go to the website right now, betonline.ag. Make sure you know where the game starts. So wrapping up here with Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC. And as mentioned, there are a lot of good teams out of the Atlantic that are in the Tier 1 and Tier 2, not only Wake Forest, but Clemson, as we mentioned, is going to be a big monkey for NC State. They're going to have to go down to Death Valley and beat Clemson this go-round. We don't necessarily know how DJ Uiagalelei is going to perform, but we know that at the end of the day, Clemson is still Clemson. We also have the Coastal Division side of things. Miami and Pitt are both in Tier 2, according to our friends here at Big Game Boomer. Now, Miami is slated to have a really good season, in my opinion. They will rightly deserve to be in this Tier 2. Pitt, on the other hand, we're having a transfer quarterback come in, Keenan Slovis. He is going to come in and expect to repeat some of the magic that Kenny Pickett brought to last year's group. Defense got a year older, getting themselves under their belt. They were not known for their defense last season, but ultimately had a decent career and came out with some ACC championships. Now, on the Coastal side, let's say NC State, who squat the bed randomly last year to Miami and who never got a chance to play Pitt, but nonetheless, they might have to face them off in the ACC Championship this year. How do you feel like NC State would fare?
Against Pitt, I think that's an excellent matchup for NC State. I think that is an excellent matchup for NC State because Narduzzi likes to play downhill, no frills, kind of leaving his corners on an island. And I'm sorry, but Pitt does not have the horses in the stable to keep up with NC State. And I believe they play regular season this year as well. So that'll be fun to see. But I don't think that there's a situation where there's enough there to play the style of defense that Narduzzi wants to play and win that game. Now, moving on to Miami. Miami is I think that they present the same problems that they did last year, where I warned everybody last year because everybody said, oh, this is going to be, Manny Diaz is on the ropes and this squad has got nothing left to play for and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, hold on. Because their best player, the thing that they do well, those deep balls to Rambo, that's what they do best. We cannot sleep on that with what we've seen from our corner so far this year. And lo and behold, what happens. Now, the idea going into this Miami game next year would be what do they look like offensively? With Cristobal there, I know that they're going to want to run the ball more. How effectively can they do that against this NC State front? That's going to be a big part of it. That's going to be a really big part of it. And then the other part of it, what weapons develop for Tyler Van Dyke? How does that offense look in year 2 or actually a true year 1 with Tyler Van Dyke going through camp, going through offseason, going through everything as QB1? How does it look? So I don't want to make a prediction as to what would happen in those games right now because there's a lot of variables that I would like to see.
There are always going to be variables.
Well, of course there will always be variables.
Okay.
But, wow. Okay. NC State against Pitt, I would have NC State. NC State against Miami. As it stands right now, I would also take NC State. I don't think that those teams would beat NC State at this moment. But with that being said, No.
There's no renege. You say it with your chest.
No, I'm not reneging on that. What I was about to say is we know how crazy the Atlantic is. Who knows who's actually going to be in the conference championship? Because last year, remember, the Atlantic was a foregone conclusion. That was UNC's to lose. That was they're going to be top 5.
The Coastal?
The Coastal, yes. The Coastal was theirs to lose. That was their show. Mac Brown got it rolling.
If you're going to be smug, at least get it right.
You're right. But at the end of the day, we saw what happened, did we not? And now everybody's announcing that that division is Pitt and Miami's race to lose. This wouldn't
Because
be the first
Sam
time.
Howell is left, and of course, we don't even know who the start QB1 is going to be going into camp, which is crazy.
But I'm not just talking about UNC. Listen, how many times have we said, oh, there's no way this team makes the conference championship? Duke has made a conference championship out of there. So, I mean, it wouldn't be wild to see. I'm not saying Duke does it this year. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is,
They're just winning 6 games. Come on now.
Sure. It's not wild to see. It wouldn't be wild to see a Georgia Tech have a surprise year where it's like, wait, they're in the conference championship? I'm just saying. I'm not saying.
How can you sit here and in 1 minute say Coach Collins is on the way out, and then the next minute be like, oh, yeah, Georgia Tech can surprise people?
I have been saying all along that Georgia Tech is a team that could possibly have a bigger year than everybody thinks, first off. Second of all, this is not to say that Georgia Tech is definitely doing that. What I'm saying is the Coastal has always been that. It's called coastal craziness for a reason. You never know who's going to come up out of there. You never know. Maybe.
Well, I think it's Atlantic anarchy this year. You never know who's coming out of the Atlantic, because as sure as the sky is blue, you thought it was going to be Clemson all along, but now there's very much viable options from all fronts.
Absolutely. And Clemson had a ton of injuries last year, and DJ forgot how to throw the ball. Who could have predicted that? Like, that's not something that you see every day. With Breesy going down, they had another defensive tackle go down for the year. They had one running back transfer in the middle of the season. They had a lot of things going on. Skalski got hurt. One of the safeties got hurt as well. Like,
Skalski getting hurt is every day. But
it really is. That's kind of part of the deal with him. But that's beside the point. They had a lot of things go wrong last year that, you never know. You're right. Atlantic anarchy is here. So is coastal craziness. And that's why I'm trying to tell everybody, anybody who's got a favorite that they swear by right now, you're sounding crazy. For the Atlantic or the coastal, you're sounding crazy. But that's a good thing, because I think that it is closer to the SEC and quote unquote cannibalizing each other than it is, oh, look at these cupcakes just knocking each other around. Like, that's right. What I think this is.
One word. All I need is one answer. I don't need an explanation. Who is your Atlantic pick right now?
If I'm put on the spot like that, I guess I'll go with NC State.
Golly, it's paining you to root for your boys, but it's okay.
It's not paining me. It's paining me to pick somebody as a champion that has not done it. That's what pains me. That's the part that pains me.
But yet you said 10 of 11 returning starters on defense. Like, you need to buy in, sell it. You're not selling it. I'm not sold.
Because the thing is, listen, we know when we talk about BetOnline here, we tell people to gamble responsibly and all that. And I don't want to lead somebody down a dark path to where they done lost their house. And now they husband, wife, partner mad at them, talk about how we going to take care of the kids. It's a formula shortage out here. And how they going to buy what they need if they done messed around and bet everything on one team? Because I done said something in May that things have come along and changed, that now we all looking crazy. I
did have a comment on YouTube that said, why does Kenton always bet crazy or tell us to bet crazy? So
you see what I'm saying? You see, that's what I'm trying to say. When I'm talk normal, is you getting us to bet crazy. When I'm being conservative is why you struggling so much to make a decision. It's no winning. It's no winning here.
Truly no winning. But as this is our time, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to follow you and keep up with all of your work. So can you please remind the folks?
Absolutely. Wherever you are hearing this or watching this, you can find me at Locked On Wolfpack. I'm now on YouTube. We've dropped a ton of episodes there. Go listen to them. Go check them out. I promise you, I talk positively about the Wolfpack and all of them. I say the same thing about not wanting to be the hunter without not wanting to be the hunted without first being a proper hunter, but that's another story for another time. So anywhere you're listening to this, Locked On Wolfpack, as well as you can find me on Twitter at TGIF_Kenton.
No doubt about it. For Gibbs Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, we hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday, and make sure you tune in tomorrow as we have more to discuss here. We're going to talk about tiers. I like this tier conversation. It gives us a lot of good off-season chitter chatter. For next time, make sure you hit up the Locked On NFL NBA Draft podcast. You can talk big boards with us. And make sure you listen to all the conference shows. My friends, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, and the SEC, because clearly Kenton has a lot to say about all of those. Maybe we should get you on some of those other conference shows, a little crossover action. But we'll have to save it for the next one. Appreciate everyone's time.